Command & Conquer Red Alert is not a sequel, nor a spin-off, but a prequel to the Command & Conquer series. It was released in 1996 for Windows 95 and DOS. It was the first in the Red Alert series, a well-known series in the PC gaming world. The game was originally supposed to be an expansion to the original Command & Conquer, but new ideas were flowing through the producer's minds during the game's development. Red Sperry, the designer, wanted an RTS set in the old-time days of war, to give it a different feel to the sci-fi world of the first game. We wanted to give it the same Command & Conquer style of crazy ideas and hammy yet tense cutscenes. The result was Command & Conquer Red Alert, a game that not only lives up to the high standards of its predecessor, but surpasses them completely. In the story, a scientist named Albert Einstein invented a chronosphere, a machine capable of bending space and time like a pipe cleaner. This means he is able to travel through time. Being the good man that he is, Einstein decided to prevent the cause of one of the deadliest conflicts in history, by erasing Adolf Hitler from existence. The time travel had a deadly side effect though. As with Hitler gone, there were no longer any opponents that were going to stop another deadly regime. The Soviet Union, led by the one and only Joseph Stalin.
Russia's borders will stretch from coast to coast.
To respond to this, all of the governments in Europe united together to form the Allied Forces, a military junta dedicated to beating back the ever-expanding Soviet Empire. Your main commander in the Allied campaign is General Van Helsing, a German military genius, and in the Soviet campaign, you serve Stalin, who sounds a lot more badass than he did in real life.
От имени советского правительства и нашей большевистской партии приветствую и поздравляю вас с 24-й годовщиной Великой Октябрьской социалистической революции.
What's interesting is that the story branches out into different games when you play different campaigns. The Allied campaign is canon to the Red Alert series, and the Soviet campaign is canon to the Tiberian series, as you see elements of an ever-emerging Brotherhood of Nod within the Soviet Union. This is exemplified with Kane, the leader of the Brotherhood, serving as Stalin's advisor. After playing both campaigns, I can't help but think that the Soviet campaign is much more involved with the story than the Allied campaign is, as you see how cold-hearted the regime is, along with an increase in emotion and overall seriousness as the Soviet Union nears its complete domination of Europe. I also like the historical context the Red Alert places you in. I mean, you were taking orders from Stalin himself in the Soviet campaign. This pretty much proves that whatever RTS game has Stalin in it is going to be awesome. Never mind. The concept is mostly the same as his predecessor. Eliminate the enemy before he eliminates you. Like the first game, Red Alert has two sides, the Allies and the Soviets. Each side has entirely different types of units to command. However, Red Alert expands upon the concept by introducing several new units that give the game a lot more variety, such as V2 rockets and submarines. The game may seem like a rehash of the same old game to you, but it feels so different when you play both games. The sounds are different, the graphics are different, and the atmosphere is different. Red Alert is well known for being horribly imbalanced in favor of the Soviets, and after playing this game, I can't help but think that they're right in this assumption. The Soviets pretty much overpower the Allies in almost every field. On land, the Allies' most powerful vehicle, the medium tank, has only half the firepower of the Soviets' weakest vehicle, the heavy tank. They also have the edge in long-range artillery, as their V2 rocket launcher has longer range and a more powerful weapon than the Allies' artillery. To top it all off, the Soviets had the Mammoth tank. I've talked about how powerful the Mammoth tank was in the first game, but here, it seems that almost nothing can stop it. The Mammoth tank is so overpowered that being in possession of just a few will give you such an unfair advantage. It's the only unit in RTS history that I know does not have any weaknesses. Their missiles obliterate infantry and air units, and their 120mm cannons take care of vehicles nicely. There is no surefire way to defeat a Mammoth tank other than sheer brute force. If that doesn't spell imbalance, I don't know what does. Soviets rule the air as well. They have Hind attack helicopters, paratroopers, MiGs that can destroy buildings and vehicles in one fell swoop, and Yaks, which can mow down infantry very quickly. All the Allies have is a longbow, which is just the Orca from the first game carried over. In terms of defense, the Soviets have flame turrets which incinerate infantry, and the feared Tesla coil. The Tesla coil is ridiculous. It zaps infantry and turns vehicles into melted steel. It has an insane range and is only a cell short of V2s. This is basically the obelisk of life from Tiberian Dawn, except in that game you faced only a few of those in the entire GDI campaign. In the Allied campaign, they're all over the place. Some you face as early as the first mission. The Allied equivalent is the gap generator. It keeps your base from being seen. Well, that's real powerful, you know. The only advantage that the Allies have is control over the sea. Not because of the fact that they have gunboats and destroyers, which can fire long-range missiles at enemy buildings and units, but because of the fact that the Allies have cruisers. Words cannot describe how powerful this thing is. The cruiser has twin double-barrel cannons that can fire as far as the entire screen, and can take out powerful buildings in just a few shots. The cruiser cannot defend itself against Soviet submarines though, so keep it safe by surrounding it with gunboats or destroyers. The Allies also have Tanya, who is basically a female Rambo. She can kill entire armies with her Colt 45s and turn entire buildings into rubble with her C4s. You can also produce more than one of them. This makes for many interesting battles. Red Alert is the first game in the series that allows for naval combat. I can't help but think that this was inspired by Blizzard's Warcraft 2, which was the first to introduce the concept of sea-based battles. As a matter of fact, Westwood would have felt that Command & Conquer will be stuck in the past if it didn't have sea-based battles. So adding it in was definitely a good decision. Controlling land, sea, and air units gives a whole new flexibility to your strategies, which is a good thing to have in an RTS. I think at this part of the stage, Westwood has already established itself as a big-time video game company, and they're just experimenting with concepts that they can use in future games, which led to weird features such as Shroud Growth, a huge number of overpowered units, and super weapons such as the Corner Spear and Iron Curtain. This is also the first RTS that introduces resources that have a different yield. Ore is the general resource to gather, and gems have twice the resource yield that ore has. This is a good enough concept to be used in future Command & Conquer games, such as Tiberian Sun, the Blue Tiberian, and Red Alert 2. There are also expansion packs, Counter-Strike and Aftermath, along with the PlayStation exclusive game Red Alert Retaliation. Counter-Strike and Aftermath introduces new units along with new missions for you to complete. One of my favorite missions is Soviet soldier Volkov and Chichkoy, where you get to control Volkov, who is basically the Russian Chuck Norris, and Chichkoy, who is Russia's Cujo. I like it because of how overpowered these two units are, which makes this mission a joke to play through, but so much fun. The expansions fix balancing issues that are very apparent. The Allies have the Chrono Tank, which can teleport to anywhere on the map, and can annihilate buildings with their powerful twin missiles. The Soviets upped the ante on naval combat by introducing the Missile Sub, a submarine that can launch extremely powerful missiles from as far as the entire screen. These units definitely make multiplayer games a lot more fun to play, and gives the game a lot more balance than before. Retaliation is the PlayStation's version of Red Alert that introduces new music, new multiplayer maps, and new missions. This makes up for the somewhat downgraded graphics and sound, which seems washed out in of low quality compared to the PC version. The only reason you should play this is because of the new missions and cutscenes. Other than that, the PC version should be preferred to this. The game is the first in the series to introduce skirmish mode, which pits you against a computer in a no-holds-barred deathmatch. These matches are a lot of fun to play, because they allow for a chance to experiment with countless strategies, such as engineer rushes and mammoth tank rushes. The only major setback is that the AI is not even remotely competitive, often not taking advantage of advanced units such as the Tesla tank and the cruiser. This makes skirmishes way too easy for practice. It also has multiplayer over LAN, or with tournaments with ladders. The graphics are almost the same as Tiberian Dawn, except the buildings look different and there are snow and grass instead of just grass and desert. You may notice that this game has a much higher viewing area than in Tiberian Dawn, or at least the DOS version. Well, that's because it was released for Windows 95, which introduced DirectX. That means no more low-res graphics. This is a blessing for Red Alert, as you'll have many battles that will take over the entire screen. There is a DOS version, but I'll tell you this now. Skip the DOS version, you only need to play the Windows version. The only reason you'll play the DOS version is because you had Windows 3.1, or you're just used to looking at your battles through a magnifying glass. The sound is completely different from Tiberian Dawn, but it still feels just as intense. And it's nice to hear that the men's screams, while not as satisfying, are still a novelty to hear. If there's anything to love about Command & Conquer, it's the music, and the music here definitely won't disappoint. As a matter of fact, I consider the music in this game to be the best in the series, because it has such a wide variety of music to listen to, such as tense music, to gloomy music, to rock music, to new age music. Frank Klepacki, the music producer, definitely did his best with this game's score. Red Alert introduces a lot more features than in the first game. You can assign units to teams, which removes a lot of needless micromanagement. You can also assign formations to keep certain types of units from getting into the front lines. You no longer have to build next to buildings. Here, you're given some legroom to build your base. Thank God, no more cramped ass bases. However, the gameplay isn't without its flaws. For one, this game has the absolute worst pathfinding I have ever seen. You tell your units to go through a narrow passageway, and all of your units will take at least 3 different ways to go to that spot, regardless of any enemies in the way. It's annoying and is the worst problem that this game has. The AI isn't exactly bright either. Sometimes the AI has its units go into endless loops, resulting in a few laughs. Not only that, but the ore clogs don't care where the ore is, as long as there's ore. This often results in ore clogs veering off into the enemy's base, as if the driver is on a suicide mission. With me talking about all of these flaws, you'll think that Red Alert is overrated. Actually, that's not the case. Even with all of these flaws, I still enjoyed this game. I think these flaws were due to the age of this game. It is 14 years old, you know. So why is Red Alert still perceived as a good game? Well, if it was developed by a generic game company in a market where generic RTS games were the norm, this would have been seen as just another RTS. But it wasn't. It was developed by Westwood Studios, one of the main pioneers of the genre, and released in an unsuspecting market where there are only around 4 RTS games. Unlike RTS games that are created by generic companies, Red Alert was developed with soul and fun in mind, instead of just profits. You can tell that they had as much fun making this game as they did playing it. That is the reason I think the older Command & Conquer games are better than the new ones. Not because of nostalgia, but because they prioritize making a good game for the masses over maximum monetization. With that said, Red Alert is definitely a classic worth playing. It takes the flaws from the first game, fixes them, and multiplies the awesomeness by 2-fold. It's what Tiberian Dawn should have been, and it shows how far Westwood is willing to go to make a great game to please the loyal fans of the franchise. Sure, its flaws are apparent, but it shouldn't be enough to deter you from playing this game, and if it does, you are really missing out. Red Alert is definitely a gem worth buying, or not. The game is also freeware, so there should be no reason to play this game either. Give this game a try, and see how Command & Conquer turned from a simple game into an amazing series.